Hello again, welcome to class 675. Shall we start? What do you think? Do you think it's a good idea to start? We only have 25 minutes. Now we only have 26 minutes. We have 26 minutes. But nevertheless, that's not very much time. So there's so much to do and so little time to do it. Yes, it's a continuous uphill battle, batalla cuesta arriba. It's a continuous uphill battle, the never-ending story of improving your English. And we only have 26 minutes to gain as much productivity and improvement as possible. So I need your help. Okay, let's continue where we left off yesterday with our vocabulary booklet or book. Booklet is un librito. Book is libro. All right. Our booklet. And list number 22, page 146. But only the last five. Pasar la pelota. Pasar la pelota. To pass the buck. To pass the buck. Buck, B-U-C-K, has buck, basically two meanings. One is ciervo macho, is a buck, a stag, a buck, springbok, rebok. Eso es en Afrikaans, buck. Buck. But buck has a second meaning. Es un pavo, pero no pavo de pavonear. 12 pavos, 1000 pavos. Sí, tengo 100 pavos. $100 means $1, un dólar. En español no sé por qué decís pavos para dólares. Of course, translating the movies, they said 1,000 bucks. And so they translated 1000 pavos. Okay, fine. But I think there is a reason. I can't remember the reason. But a buck. Now, to pass the buck really comes from to pass the dollar, el dólar. But to pass the buck is pasar la pelota. Harry Truman was the President of the United States from April 1945 upon the death of Franklin Roosevelt until January 20th, 1953. How do you know the dates perfectly? Well, January 20th, 1953 is easy because that's the official inauguration date of a president if the elections are in November 1952. So 2.5 months later, January 20th, 1953, Dwight Eisenhower became the president. And Harry Truman said goodbye and went home to Missouri. Franklin Roosevelt died of a derrame cerebral, ¿cómo se dice? Yeah, a blood clot in April 1945. A few days, really, before the end of the Second World War in Europe, because Adolf Hitler committed suicide on April 30th, I believe, 29th or 30th. So I think 2 weeks later or something, I don't remember. And so during that time, Harry Truman from the state of Missouri was the president. And he was a very visceral person, the opposite of Franklin Roosevelt. And on his desk in the Oval Office, despacho oval, in the Oval Office, he had a plaque. And the plaque said, "The buck stops here." Aquí para la pelota. Porque el presidente no puede pasar a nadie. So, to pass the buck. And Harry Truman said, the buck stops here. And that has become a famous expression for people who can't pass the buck. The buck stops here. With your English, the buck doesn't stop here. I can pass the buck to you because it's your responsibility to improve your English. It's not my responsibility. I can help you, but in the end, in el análisis final, in the final analysis, at the end of the day, se dice, al final del día, se está importando eso aquí también. At the end of the day, in the final analysis, in the end, no at. At the end es al final de un Trayecto, por ejemplo, at the end. But in the end means in the final analysis, at the end of the day. It's your responsibility. All right, pasar la pelota. Me sale. To pass the buck. Buck. Buck se escribe con luck, suerte, pero con B. To pass the buck. Reanudar is to resume. Amigo falso, super falso. Resumir en español es hacer un resumen. Resumir. En resumidas cuentas. Pero resume, escrito en inglés, es reanudar, empezar de nuevo. Resume. Let's start where we left off yesterday. Let's resume with list number 22 in our vocabulary book. To resume. We'll resume after lunch. Empezaremos de nuevo después de la comida. We'll resume after lunch. To resume, all right, extenderse is to spread. Spread the word. Spread the word. Spread. If the fire, a forest fire. Yes. If you're in the forest camping and you build a fire, se dice muchas veces construir un fuego, una fogata, un fuego. You build a fire. Be careful, because sometimes the fire can go too high and touch a branch of a tree, and in a question of 3 minutes, 5 minutes, you have the beginning of a forest fire. And then it can spread. 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 This is an important verb, to spread. And you say extendiendo, it's spreading. To spread. La colcha de la cama. You have the mattress, you have the bed, you have the mattress. The mattress is el colchón, fine. And then you have cubre colchón, something for the cover, the mattress sheet. Then you have the sheet. The sheet is la sábana, okay, the sheet. And then you have the bedspread, la colcha. It was spread. You spread it over the bed, spread. Now, if you have a piece of toast, es una tostada. Por cierto, si dices a toast, una tostada, it's a big mistake in English. A toast is un brindis. A piece of toast is un trozo, una pieza o pedazo de pan tostado. See, toast is pan tostado. Okay, toast. Now, a piece of toast. If you have a piece of toast and you have some butter, you spread the butter, untar. You spread the butter on the piece of toast, and then you eat it. Yes. Now, I recommend that you spread the butter generously on the piece of toast. Then you take cinnamon sugar, mezcla de azúcar y canela. Have you tried that? You haven't. You try it. In the supermarkets, Marta, you can buy canela con azúcar. It's a mixture. And then put butter or margarine, margarina, or margarine or butter, generously. When the piece of toast is hot, not when it's cold, when it's hot, the butter will melt and mix with the cinnamon and sugar, and you'll end up eating 10 pieces of toast. I gained 2 kilos yesterday with butter, sugar, and cinnamon, and bread, okay? Because bread makes you fat, But I reckon you spread, to spread. Spread your wings, extiende las alas. Spread your wings, to spread. All right. Spread out means distanciados, por favor. No juntos. Spread out, o sea, hacia afuera. Spread out. I'm going to take a photograph. No, you're too close together. Spread out. Spread out, to spread. Aquí dice extenderse. The fire spread. Now spread the word. Spread, extiende la palabra. Hemos ganado. Que extienda la voz. Que corra la voz. We won. Yeah. Spread the word. Spread the word. For example, the Battle of Marathon. ¿Te acuerdas? La batalla de Maratón. The Battle of Marathon took place in 490 BC, before Christ, in the year 490 BC. The Battle of Marathon between the Athenians, not the Greeks, basically the Athenians and the Persians under Darío el Grande, Darius the Great. Yes, in marathon, 26 miles, 42 kilometers from Athens. And the Greeks defeated the Persians. And the Greek commander sent a man to run to Athens to give the good news. And he ran 42 kilometers, and he got there. He said, we won, spread the word. And he fell dead. And so today we still honor that poor guy who ran, the first marathoner who died, starting the tradition of el marathon, the marathon. And he said, he said we won. Now, if he said spread the word, I don't know, but we say spread the word. ¿Ah? Que todo el mundo se entere. Everyone. To spread, extenderse. Apreciado por todos, well-liked. Marta is a very well-liked person. To like, me gusta este libro. I like, o sea, I like this book. He dicho muchas veces que en inglés el sujeto es el que like, no es el objeto que like al sujeto. El libro me place, me da placer, o sea, me gusta, pero en inglés es al revés. Yo aprecio, yo valoro este libro. I like this book. Como yo amo este libro. I love this book. Y amar es un poco fuerte, demasiado, but I like this book. Now, a person who is well-liked es una persona muy apreciada. A well-liked, con guioncito en medio. Well-liked, Marta's a well-liked person. Am I a well-liked person? Marta says I am. Okay, all right. It's a consolation. I'm a well-liked. Salvaje, wild thing. Do you know the song? Wild thing. You are the boom, boom, bop, bum, ba, da, bum, bum. Wild thing. You make my heart sing. Cosita salvaje, chica. Hace que mi corazón cante. Wild thing. You make my heart sing. You do everything. Wild thing. Bum, 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 bum. Wild thing. I think I love you. Bum, 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 bum. But I want to know for sure. All right. Wild thing. When I was 12, my best friend was Kent Sunderland in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Kent Sunderland's father was of Irish descent, but the mother was pure Cherokee Indian, Cherokee. His mother was full Cherokee. And she was a little bit chubby, rechonchita. And she loved me. She was crazy about me because I sang for her, and I sang Wild Thing. And this chubby Indian woman, and I said, Wild Thing, I think I love you. Y se tronchaba de risa, viéndome, el niñito de 12 años haciendo tonterías. She really liked it. I remember Kent's mother, Kent Sunderland. But in any case, wild is salvaje, también es silvestre. Yeah, wild. La zona es una zona muy silvestre. It's a very wild area. A wild guess, adivinar sin tener ni idea. I don't know. What's the name of the most famous actor in Russia? I don't know. Well, I need an answer. I don't know. Boris. Okay, that's a wild guess. You're right. Boris Badenov. Or Boris Godunov. All right, but in any case, Boris, it's a wild guess. Wild Indians. My mother often called me a wild Indian. Indio salvaje. Mi madre me decía, my son is a wild Indian. All right, wild. The Call of the Wild. It's a very good book. Excellent novel by, I can't remember the name. My God, I'm losing my English. The Wild. All right, so that's the end of our vocabulary. Salvaje, silvestre, wild. Yes, wild. Wild thing. All right, what can we do now? We can do our vocabulary lists. Number 162. And if time permits, if we still have time, 163. Are you ready? But first, paragraph 162. The first thing I want to know is whose car was parked here when the bomb went off. Some people say it was a Renault, others say it was an Opel. If it was an Opel, it doesn't belong to anyone here. If it was a Renault, it could belong to a number of employees. The first thing I want to know is whose car was parked here when the bomb went off. Some people say it was an Opel and some people say it was an Opel. Excuse me, a race. Some people say it was a Renault and others that it was an Opel. If it was an Opel, it doesn't belong to anyone here. If it was a Renault, it could belong to a number of employees. Okay, when I speak English, I say Renault. The French car, Renault. Now, in the United States, many people say Renault. A lo français, Renault. A Renault. All my life I've said Renault. Como suena Renault. No? I say Renault. And I've had no problem in my life. So you can say Renault or Renault. But I'm going to say Renault. All right. The first thing I want to know is whose car was parked here when the bomb went off. So apparently there was an explosion. A car bomb. Coche bomba, no? I think, yeah. I want to know whose car was parked here when the bomb went off. The first thing I want to know is whose car? El coche de quién? ¿De quién el coche? Whose car was parked here in this place when the bomb went off? When the bomb exploded. But we don't usually say when the bomb exploded. We say to go off. I've explained it several times in past classes. So the first thing I want to know is whose car was parked here when the bomb went off. Some people say it was a Renault, and others that it was an Opel, un Opel. If it was an Opel, it doesn't belong to anyone here in this company, because nobody in this company has an Opel. Nobody in this company owns an Opel. If it was Renault, it could belong to a number of employees. So apparently there are several employees in the company who own a Renault. But strangely, nobody owns an Opel in this particular company. So the explosion took place next to the company or underground, in the parking garage under the building where the company is located, or in the parking lot, if it's an outdoor parking lot next to the building, next to the company, boom, there was an explosion. And it's not clear. Apparently the car was totally damaged, and they can't tell yet if it was they think it was a Renault or an Opel, but it's not clear. And so he says, the first thing I want to know, el detective, I think it was the manager of the company. The first thing I want to know is whose car was parked here when the bomb went off. When the bomb, B mudo al final, bomb. When the bomb went off. Some people say it was a Renault. Some people say it was, el coche. Some people say it was a Renault. Others, that it was an Opel. If it was an Opel, it doesn't belong to anyone here. If it was Renault, it could belong to a number, buen número de empleados. It could belong to a number of employees. Understand, Marta? It could belong to a number of employees. So, let's continue to paragraph number 163. The courtroom was full of reporters when the judge came in. He had them leave and then addressed the people who remained. He reminded us of the seriousness of the case at hand and told us that any type of recording equipment was strictly forbidden. He's a good judge. Buen juez es, eh? He's a good judge. Yes. The courtroom, la sala de juicios. That's where, a trial, escrito trial. Trial aquí es para las motos, trial. También en inglés, the trial. I think it's the same. But a trial, the most common word for trial is un proceso judicial, un juicio. All right. Sala de juicios is the courtroom, la corte, courtroom. And in the courtroom, you have the judge. In the Anglo-Saxon, you have the jury, el jurado, sometimes, not always. It depends on the type of trial or the type of hearing. Es curioso. In Spanish, say una vista. Tengo que estar en una vista. Decimos nosotros una oída. We say hearing. Okay, it's the same thing. But in Spanish, say vista, and in English, we say hearing. Tengo que asistir a un hearing. I have to attend a hearing. In a hearing, you don't have a jury. But in a formal trial, often you have a jury of 12 citizens. All right. Now, the courtroom was full of reporters. Periodistas, reporteros. So apparently it's a very important trial. A very controversial, polemical, controversial trial. And because the courtroom was full of reporters when the judge came in. Levántense el juez. Everybody stands up. All right. Su señoría, in English, is your honor, su honor, your honor. The courtroom was full of reporters when the judge came in. He had them leave. The orden para que salieran. Toda la prensa fuera. He had them leave. 2 days ago, I spoke about I had the walls painted. You remember, a strange color. He had them leave and then addressed the people who remained. To remain is permanecer. La gente que sí permanecía. To address is dirigirse verbalmente a. To address the... ladies and gentlemen, now that the reporters have left, I have something important I want to say before we begin the trial. And so the judge addressed the courtroom once he had the reporters leave. And he addressed the courtroom to address. El discurso de Gettysburg is the most famous speech in the history of American English. It's called the Gettysburg Address. El discurso inaugural del presidente on the 20th of January is the inaugural address. To address somebody. To address. I'm addressing you. In essence, I'm addressing you, although I'm teaching. Okay. The courtroom was full of reporters when the judge came in, when the judge entered. He had them leave. And then addressed the people who remained, quienes permanecían. He reminded us, yo estaba también, I was in the courtroom. He reminded us, nos recordaba. He reminded us of the seriousness of the case at hand. El caso judicial, a mano, presente. We say at hand, a mano. El caso a mano, el caso actual, presente, is very serious. He reminded us of the seriousness of the case and told us, what did he tell you? Well, he told us, Well, what did he tell you? He told us that any type of recording equipment was strictly forbidden. Verboten, strictly forbidden. Recording equipment, with my telephone, I can record this class. And I can record the trial. But it's strictly forbidden. Here in Spain, if you go to the court, you have to leave your cell phone in the entrance, in reception. You have to. At least in mercantile court. In labor court, I don't know. In the United States, I don't know. But this said, he told us that any type, cualquier clase de equipo de grabación, any type of recording equipment was strictly forbidden. All right. One more time. The courtroom was full of reporters when the judge came in. He had them leave and then addressed the people who remained. He reminded us of the seriousness of the case at hand and told us that any type of recording equipment was strictly forbidden. How much time, Marta? Do we have? This is all, we're out of time. The party's over for today. It's the final countdown. But it's been a pleasure. See you tomorrow.